Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Joseph.
Hello.
Hi.
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 We don't drink normally.
Oh, neither. I've made the horrible error, guys, of this evening having a gin and tonic before we started. It's like the worst idea
Me
ever.
too.
Best idea.
Sounds perfect.
Hi, Rachel.
And Ian's just had his vaccination, so he's feeling like he needs a glass of wine to keep him going.
Oh,
wow.
definitely. Tessa, definitely. No, neither. I've made the horrible error, guys, of this evening having a gin and tonic before we started.
You should be
the worst idea ever.
a vermouth.
Best idea.
Sounds perfect.
Rachel.
And Ian's just had his vaccination, so he's feeling like he needs a glass of wine to keep him going.
Oh, definitely. Tessa, definitely. I made the horrible error, guys, of this evening having a gin and tonic. I think we've got lots of feedback, so I'm just going to go through and mute everyone. I'm going to Mark, if you unmute yourself now. It's Mark. It's Mark. Mark, it's you. Mark, you might want to try and get some headphones.
I'm
just going to go through and mute everyone.
I'm giving myself feedback.
I'm going to Mark, if you unmute. Right, everyone else that can still hear me, wave if you can hear me. Great, Matthew Sorden, thank you for the wave. Helen Hugh, thank you for the wave. So I think we're getting loads of feedback from Mark for some bizarre reason. No, Mark, stop unmuting yourself. Right, everyone else that can still hear me, wave if you can hear me.
I can hear you now.
Great, Matthew Sorden,
Yeah,
thank you for the wave. Helen Hugh, thank you for the wave. So I think we're getting loads of feedback from Mark for some bizarre reason. Mark, stop unmuting yourself.
Oh, God. Right, it's absolutely seamless. I've muted Mark again because for some reason it's repeating everything I say about 5 times to Mark and then playing it back through his audio. So I'm going to keep allowing everyone to join as we go. Yeah, Mark. Andrew, no. Mark, silence the monkeys. Don't know if that's very bad grammar or whether you're telling him to silence me. Right, Mark, give it a go now. Double.
How about now?
Can you hear me?
Right, we can hear you, Mark. So, testing.
No,
okay.
So the question is, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, well, that's all right then. In which case.
Oh, good. And it sounds like there's not a delay now, which is good.
Okay, well, I just put one ear in just in case I'm deaf in the other ear, so it makes no difference. So that's all right. Okay.
Rita, he can't hear you.
So let me just. I'm just going to say. I can hear you. Whoever said that. So. Who was that? Who's that speaking?
Rachel.
Oh, Rachel. No, I can hear a man speak. I can hear a man speaking.
Oh, let me go through and see. Everyone else is muted. Can you hear yourself, Mark? Rita's laughing.
No.
I can see heads and hands from others in the group.
Well, that's me. Okay, I'm hearing myself. I'm hearing myself very delayed. That's ridiculous. I can hear not at the time, but then about 2 seconds later I can. Yeah,
so I think there's a problem with your feedback tonight, Mark, and there is a big delay on what you're hearing.
Let me try changing.
But everyone else can hear you all right. So good evening, everybody. While Mark sorts out his feedback, we will crack on. I hope that, I don't know how many of you have made the expensive effort of using an entire bottle of Barolo in it. David, map, that looks delicious.
Absolutely delicious. So yeah, I don't know how many of you decided to put your bottle of Barolo into the beef stew, but we went for one of the. Mark's advice is always don't cook with a wine that you wouldn't drink. So we put a bottle of Portuguese wine from Mark in the stew, and I'm going to eat it later.
Rachel, can you stop a second? Because I'm hearing you dub. Rachel, can you stop a second, please? Rachel, stop. Rachel, can you stop a second? Yeah. Right. Can you hear me? Can anybody hear me? Yeah, okay. Now, Rachel, I was here. I think it might be your. Oh, blimey. I'm going to have to. Maybe I need to log out and start again. If I knew how to do that, that'd be good. Rachel, you're co-hosting, so I'm going to log out and come back in again.
Okay, cool. We'll let you in. Right. Well, Tessa looks horrified about what's happening, but I assure you, everything is fine. Mark tried to blame me there. I saw some, classic blame culture going on there. Must be my fault. No, not this time. No, as I was saying, I hope everyone has, maybe attempted to. Barry Colvin, you look like you've maybe made some kind of, looks delicious. Yep, very authentic. I can't talk about the wines, as you know, because all I do is drink them. But what I can do is tell you a story, which is that my husband and I were very lucky during the tiny little window of travel that was allowed last summer. We actually took a trip to Barolo. So very lucky to have tasted loads of the food, drunk a lot of the wine, and visited. It is genuinely one of the most beautiful parts of Italy. The Piemonte region as a whole is hugely diverse, covers from kind of the if you imagine where like Monte Carlo is, follow the coast round that top part of Italy, and the region goes right the way through over Venice onto the eastern coast of northern Italy. The Barolo region is a tiny, I think it's 4 or 5 valleys, each village or each thing has a. You're back! Hurrah! Thank God, I was running out of content.
I'm going to show you a map.
Great.
Right, hang on. I'm going to do a screen share, and which is the where? Yeah, screen share. Let's share a screen. Sort of, if I know how to do that. And it's going well, isn't it? This one. I'll do that one. And I'm going to share the screen sound, and we'll share that. Now, can you hear?
We can.
Can you see that?
We can.
But is there any volume? There we go.
Sono Federica Bona e sono dell'azienda La Fusina, gestita da me, mio fratello e mio papà insieme. Ci troviamo oggi in questo appezzamento di terra che è il più grande della nostra azienda, sono 5 ettari tutti insieme e come vedete l'uva è già stata raccolta e ormai è in cantina e il vino è già stato tirato, quindi diciamo che siamo a buon punto. In questo appezzamento di terra, qui dove siamo in questo momento, produciamo la nostra barbera. E sotto abbiamo parte a Dogliani dove facciamo il Dogliani superiore e il San Luigi e dall'altra parte invece abbiamo il Nebbiolo per fare il nostro Langhe Nebbiolo. Una vista mozzafiato e dei colori fantastici.
Nice video. So what I like about it particularly was that in every single bowl of food, there seemed to be an entire bottle of red wine. That sort of must be typical of the region. Perfect. I want to, so right, Federica, before we go on and talk to you again, I've got some, I want to do some maps, which we like to do. And if I can find that. Right, so first of all, this was hang on, get rid of that. Just from last week, we did a tasting with a Viognier and a red wine, and we had French onion soup. And there's a few bowls of pictures that came through here, which were lovely. The one on the bottom right was somebody who doesn't like onions, so they did a bowl of pasta instead. So yeah, there you go. That was just some very smart efforts here. I'm expecting some even greater things tonight. Let's have a look at the map of Italy. So in the past, we've done wines from Apulia. So we've had Gregory and Anarchos and the Feloni from down there in the heel of Italy. And now we're going right to the opposite end of the country into Piedmont. And the detail of that is, here's the sort of the bit in the middle, which is the Barolo, the red wine area. So if you can see where I am, you've got the village of Barolo here, the town of Dogliani here, which is where Federica's based. And you've got Acqui and Fortuna, you've got Asti, you've got Turin up there. And this is very much the center of it. Here's a picture of your own vineyard there, Federica, absolutely beautiful with the mountains in the background, absolutely fantastic. You can see the slopes of the vineyard and the family shot there, which is beautiful. The other thing is, of course, think of Italy as a sort of a hot climate. You absolutely can get some cold winters, and you maybe tell us whether the vines are affected at all by that when we come to chat. There's you in the vineyard doing a bit of pruning. I'm guessing that's your father. We haven't met, but I'm guessing that's your father. And now the other thing is that when I started doing a little bit of, I've been to Turin and to the region a few times, but it's very famous for all sorts of things. So in Piedmont, they produce half of Italy's risotto wine production. and they've got vast, well, rice fields, not paddy fields, but rice fields. It's very, very big, and so when we were deciding which recipes we'd want to make, we thought, well, pizza, anybody can make a pizza and put their own toppings on it. And then, of course, Federica, your mother suggested the local one. It has to be the brassato al barolo, which is the meat with a bottle of red wine, which therefore we've got to do. But there are plenty of other sort of regional foods that we could have had a look at, one being risotto. The other thing that's very important in the region is hazelnuts. And interestingly, back in 1806, here's a thing, not in 1806 here, but the hazelnuts, the local Lange hazelnuts are the hazelnut equivalent of DOC or Appellation Contrôlée. So they're very specific hazelnuts. And it's an area very well known for it. And I go back to 1806, when the Napoleonic Wars were on and the ports, the Channel ports were being blockaded. So the UK or the England or whichever country it was, Great Britain at the time, there was a shortage of chocolate, and chocolate couldn't get through France and get into Italy. So a local guy decided, well, we've got to stretch it. So there was a very short supply, not no supply, but short supply of chocolate. They started grinding up hazelnuts and adding it to the chocolate. And there's a product called Gianduja, and hey ho, Nutella was invented. And that's how Nutella started all the product. And of course, the brand name we know is Nutella. And I'm not sure. I have seen Nutella pizza recipes, so I haven't tried it, but we'll give it a go. The other thing it's very famous for is truffles. We've had a tasting last year with a truffle producer from France, but I think it's fair to say that Alba, the town of Alba in Piedmont, is very much the truffle capital of the world. And white truffles, I did a quick check on the price not too long ago. White truffles were going for £2,000 a kilo. And if you go into a sort of top restaurant in anywhere in Italy or anywhere in the world, to be honest with you, when you get a couple of thin, wafer thin slices of truffles, they add £75 or €75 to the bill. It's absolutely staggeringly expensive. And Federica, come to chat, maybe you tell us whether you have any on your farm. I don't know. And of course, beef in Barolo. So they've got some very good beef. And that's on a bowl of polenta. I think polenta is one of those things that has to be done really well. I've tried to make it myself and failed miserably. It comes out sort of like rubber. And I'll take the screen off now and come back to Federica. If you want to unmute yourself so we can say hello, Federica.
Hello.
Hello. Hi
to
there.
everybody from Italy.
Welcome.
I would like to come directly to visit you, but in this period is not possible. So we have to make this virtual texting that for me it's very, very strange. It's the first time that I make a testing like that. Sorry for my English because it's not perfect, and if you speak quickly, it's difficult for me to understand.
We'll speak slowly, but I think what we need to do is everybody got a glass of. We're starting off with the dolcetto.
I have as well.
I'd like to raise a glass to Federica and to this evening, and have a swirl round and a slurp. Now I did mention in the email that there's something very specific, very different to these wines that we're having tonight compared to lots of the other wines, is that these are wines with a higher acidity and a higher tannin, and they are very much food wines. And if you think about some of the red wines we've had, and let's take Anarchos as an example, or Domaine des Anges, which we're doing next week, they're soft and they're round, and you can drink them all on their own. These wines are very, very much food wines. And what marks a wine out as being a food wine, as opposed to a wine to drink on its own, is the levels of acidity, or tannins, obviously, but all the wines have tannins. Some of them are softer than others, but it's a level of acidity. And I think a wine to be a really successful food wine that you can drink a lot of, and that's not, of course, that's not my that's not my judgment as to whether a wine is good as to how much you can drink. But if you have it with food, these wines with the higher acidity, like this Dolcetto, they sort of cut through the food, and they're in a way almost better balanced. And so Federica, tell us a bit about this whilst we have a swirl and a slurp. The color is beautiful. I love this Dolcetto. You tell us about Dolcetto, and I'll tell you about sort of my understanding of Dolcetto. Right.
But this Dolcetto, the grapes is 100% Dolcetto. That is a grapes typical from my town and from the area of Piedmont where we are. This is a Langhe Dolcetto, so it's the basic wine, the basic Dolcetto that we make is only still. And for us, it's very nice wine if you take lunch or for aperitif with a friend. It's not so strong because it's 12 degree and half. So you can eat also with some pizza or some pasta fresh or in the with barbecue for the summer. Would be a glass of wine that you can drink with your friend.
I think it's got my tasting notes on this one. Actually, it's making my mouth water, and I think that's the nice acidity that it's got in there. And I do have obviously my slice of pizza which we made just before we started. And it goes really well. And on your own tasting notes, you suggest having pizza with this. It's 12.5% alcohol. And when I first used to go down to the Piedmont and started looking at the red wines, the really famous ones, of course, is Barolo, which we'll taste later, and Barbaresco, and probably those are the ones that are really well known in terms of reds. But I always really liked this Dolcetto. I mean, Dolcetto, the name it means it's sweet. I don't know where the derivation is, but dolce means sweet. But it's a lovely deep. It's a purple. It's almost like a Beaujolais. It's like an Italian Beaujolais to me.
Sorry, Mark. If you want, I explain you why the name of Dolcetto.
Yeah, please.
Because the grapes, if you eat the grapes, is very sweet. Is the sweeter grapes that you can taste for red wine. So it's really more sweet than Barbera, than Nebbiolo. And is for this reason, because a lot of people think that Dolcetto is a sweet wine, that in Dogliani, we make other wine, the Dogliani Diocesi and the Dogliani Superiore, that are always 100% Dolcetto, but we decide to change the name for this reason.
Okay, so because there was confusion, people thought it was sweet.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that makes sense because the Dolcetto, it does mean sort of sweet, I suppose. But so you're based in the town of Dogliani, which is a regional name for a wine which is also made 100% from the Dolcetto grape.
Yes.
We by the way, the other two wines, we've got 4 of your wines, Federica. We've got this Dolcetto delle Langhe, we've got the Barbera, which is the other red grape, and the Barolo, but we've also got the Dogliani, which is, you could say, the step up of Dolcetto from the Langhe. Although, having said that, I just love this sort of simple, intense cherry-like fruit coming from this one. I think it's a wine. I do think that I could sit and we're having the pizza tonight, so I'll probably finish this bottle because Mrs. H doesn't drink when dry, so I've probably got the whole bottle to drink to myself. And then tomorrow I'll finish off the bottle of Barolo with the beef in Barolo. So
my heart bleeds, Mark. Heart absolutely bleeds for you, you poor thing. Mark, we've had a question.
Yeah.
What is the plant on the label?
That's for Federica to answer.
This plant is, I don't know really in English, but all our labels, not the Barolo, but the other, there is a flower from typical country in our town.
Okay, well, we'll have to, what is it in Italian?
This is, I'm not so sure if which floor is this.
Okay, well, don't worry, we'll
Because all the floor.
tell everybody afterwards. Go away. Say Gaggy away.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at the plant.
Are all the floor typical that grown in our town? All the floor that you can see.
It's beautiful. It's a lovely wine, and I'm enjoying it very much. It's not been oak aged, and we're just getting the lovely fruity, the cherry like fruit. I don't know what other tasting notes people are getting, but I'm finding it's light. It's 12.5%. It is very much a wine that I would have lunchtime, summer barbecues. I wouldn't have to wait for the evening. I think it's a really versatile wine, and enjoying it very much. I'm going to have just a little bit of pizza.
It is yummy. I'd love everyone to like throw some comments in the chat box, like what you think it tastes like, what you're getting. I hope everyone isn't like Rita and does like red wine, because it is delicious. Oh, rosemary. Yeah, so Andrew Dixon guessed it looks like rosemary. So
rosemary, yeah.
Yeah, rosmarino. Yeah, yum. Yeah, like throw us in what you think of the dolcetto. And would you chill it slightly? Good question, George and Karen.
Well, so I think I would chill certain Pinot Noir, and I would chill maybe a light Beaujolais. I've got a feeling that the temperature of the one I've got at the moment is definitely, I would say, less than 20. It's probably 18, 17 degrees. Federica, do you have a preferred temperature that you think that the wine should be drunk at?
This is good if you drink like red wine. So is more or less 18 degree, 17, 18 degree.
Yeah, so that's low room temperature. But
if you drink in the summer, but very hot summer, also a little bit fresh, is okay. This wine.
I think there's nothing wrong in the summer if it gets too hot to put an ice cube in the bottle, in a glass of red wine, to keep it down with the temperature. You may think that's heretical, some people, but I think it's okay. I think it's the right thing to do.
And Mark, our veteran wine tasters, James and Catherine, have asked, they're struggling. They think it's delicious. I do as well. It's very drinkable and quite light. But they're struggling to land, as am I, on what the key notes are. So give us the tasting notes for it.
To me, it's sort of cherry stones. Cherry. It's cherry. It's probably a similar sort of tasting note I would give to a Beaujolais of some sort. If James has said an old leather suitcase, it's leathery, but in it you can have very leathery styles of wines, and I'm guessing that in a sense, but in a very positive sense, darlings.
I do know what he means though. Maybe it's like a slight, very subtle aniseed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mark's like, no. That's Mark's way of saying no.
I think, like with any, because Dolcetto is not one of these straight down the middle grape varieties that, Viognier that we've had before is apricots and peaches, and Merlot is plums or whatever, and Cabernet Sauvignon is black currants. There's nothing here, so you don't necessarily need to find a something, but whatever it says to you, if you recognize and have that in another time, it'll be something similar to this.
Well, Catherine got slight aniseed as well, so I feel like that's now part of the flavor profile, because it's a vote of 2. Cherries and tobacco we've got from Gary as well. Plum and blackberry from Tony. Yeah, like all sorts really, but definitely like very light. It is £12.50, by the way, everyone. And yeah, I think it looks like your pizza looks yummy, Mark. I'm a bit annoyed because I've obviously gone to the effort of making a 12-hour marinated beef to eat tonight, despite having a full-time job. But you know, you've changed it up and had pizza. Pizza's my favorite food. I'm annoyed now I don't have pizza. Hopefully you've got a slice for me in the post.
Yeah, so I've made a point of having some that we made earlier to eat with this, because I think it's quite important that with a wine like this, as I said before, it's a wine that goes so well with food. But maybe if you put this side by side without food to a really soft, rich red wine, you think, oh, it's not very nice. But actually, it comes into its own with the food, and it's actually better. So a different wine might be better on its own, but this wine would absolutely be better with food, because some other richer wine you might tire of after a while, but you wouldn't tire. I think you wouldn't tire of this one. I think it's good. Whilst whilst I would suggest we pour a glass of the Barolo and just let it aerate a bit.
Freudian slip there, Mark.
Yeah.
Pour yourself a bottle.
Pour a bottle. Well, I've got both of these bottles are all mine this weekend. When I first went my first job, when I left university, having studied Spanish and French at Bradford, I got a job at Victoria Wine as a trainee wine buyer.
Excuse me. Oh no, they're not.
What?
All yours.
Well, I'm
going to have some.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know, but
Tell me the story.
yeah, I know, but but you're only saying that because you're on the screen. I'm having them all. I'm having them all.
Am I having some of this now?
Yeah, you can have some of that. So you have
some of it. I heard we all heard that, Mark. You can have some of it.
Well, that's a big sum. That's all right. Anyway, fair enough.
They're lovely.
Well, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you get you into red wine. It'll be good. It'll be good. So the Italian wine buyer left to join another company, and so rather than give me anything in France or Spain, they made me the Italian wine buyer, and so I had to go on a course to learn Italian, which was great. I really loved it, and I went straight off, and one of the things that we did was Victoria Wine's own label vermouth, and that was all based in the area. So the main area of production of vermouth is in the Piedmont. And Asti Spumante, which is not a really popular wine anymore, but it was quite big back in the early 80s, and certainly in the 70s. And I think that Asti Spumante it has got a place in the wine rack. I think it's a lovely wine, a good one. It's pure Moscato, and it makes a semi or fully sparkling wine, low in alcohol. And if you want something lovely and cold and refreshing and fruity, and you want to pour it over a bowl of vanilla ice cream in the summer, that's absolutely delicious. And there was, I don't know if anybody who was around or was drinking back in the 80s, a brand called Piemontello. That was a brand that we had. It was a semi-sparkling Moscato, delicious. And the producer also had a brand called Frangelico, which was an Amaro, a bitter, a bit like those after dinner ones that you have, which taste like medicine, but which are actually really delicious. So there's a lot of different wines coming from the area. The big name at the time was called Ceretto, and they were a Barbaresco producer. And Barbaresco is next door to Barolo, both made 100% from the Nebbiolo grape. And Ceretto, we used to get that for Victoria Wine, and we were on some sort of limit even back then. But now, if you want to buy any Ceretto Barbaresco, you're talking I don't know, 50, 60 pounds a bottle, and it's very difficult to get hold of. So the wines have become world famous, and they are absolutely delicious. They call has everybody got some? Sorry, I'm waffling on. Go on to some Barolo and have a swirl around of the Barolo, and it's very, very, very different.
Whoa. So Mark, before we taste, and if you've tasted, you go for it. What should we get on the bouquet?
Well, this is very different. So here we have the Nebbiolo grape. So two things: A, it's a different grape, but B, it's got a very different production method. So the Dolcetto is young, fresh wine, no oak aging. Barolo must be aged for at least 18 months. Well, no, it must be aged for 38 months before it's released to the market. And of that, 18 months must be in wood. So this has been in wood barrels for a year and a half. And if you want a reserve one, it must be at least 5 years old before it's released. So it's a complex wine and it's a tannic wine. And the color, if you look at the color, how different it is. This is, of course, it's a 5-6-year-old wine now, 5-year-old wine, 6-year-old wine. And the Nebbiolo, you think of Nebbiolo as a big, rich, powerful wine, which it is. It's 14.5% alcohol, but the color is quite light. So it's a bit like a Pinot Noir in the sense that it's not a deep, deep color. And it's always been one of those things that it goes brown quite quickly. And that's very characteristic of the grape. So it's quite light, and you can see on the edges how brown it is. But when you come to sniff it, I think you're getting all sorts. You've got the flavors of the oak, tar. Yep. There's definitely leather coming through here, licorice and chocolate. I mean, there's all sorts of flavors coming through. Vanilla. We've
got a real mix in here, Mark. And shall we do? So we've got things like peppermint. I said weirdly, I get cumin. A musty cupboard. Thank you, Andrew, for making this highbrow. Pear drops, wax polish. Yeah, all sorts. Shall we do a swirl and? Taste?
I think a swirl and a slurp. If you want to unmute everybody, then Rachel.
Oh God, that? I hate doing that, as you know. I hate the pressure. Yes, I can. Hang on.
After eights, I like the idea of after eights. This is. Actually, I tell you what, there is a theory that Barolo goes well with chocolate.
There we go. Everyone should be unmuted. So if you unmute yourselves now. If you'd like to be.
If you have to unmute yourself, don't you?
Yeah.
Yes, it's working.
Yeah.
Thanks. Wow, you're unmuted.
Cheers.
Probably need.
Again. 1, 2, 3.
Cheers!
Let them mute, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Cheers. Fantastic.
Oh no, like that, yeah.
Lovely. Really good.
Wow.
Delicious.
Yay! I've attempted to mute. You can all mute yourself. That's great.
Salute.
Salute.
Right, great. I am trying to go through and unmute you all.
Hooray!
So Barolo is a complex wine, and it's
Yeah.
Often get that, do you?
Have you managed to teach everybody, Rachel?
I can't see it coming up at all.
Are you unmute yourself? So
I am. I'm unmuting everyone.
So Barolo is basically it's called the King of Wines. It's a famous phrase, the King of Wines and the Wine of Kings. It's arguably the top wine out of Italy. And if Barolo is the King of Wines, then Barbaresco, they say, is the Queen of Wines. It's slightly softer, slightly different, but they're made from 100% from the Nebbiolo grape. Nebbiolo, and that's it's Nebbiolo. Nebbia means mist or fog in Italian, and the region can get very misty and foggy. And anybody who's tried to land in Turin Airport or Milan Airport sometimes will know that very often it gets fog bound, and your flight is diverted. So it's no coincidence. And when I looked up, nothing like this. I came up with a great word. It said it's made 100% from the autochthonous grape variety. That's my new favourite word, autochthonous. And if anybody can spell it, they deserve a free bottle of wine, because it means indigenous. And I'm going to use that in my next game of Scrabble if I get 12-letter words. It's a great variety that it doesn't. I've never seen it anywhere else, except very briefly. I saw when we were in South Africa, an Italian wine producer had planted some Nebbiolo in Italy, and that's the only other place I've ever seen it grown outside. Well, not just outside Italy, but outside Piedmont. And I think it's a really fine, it's a top classic fine wine. And it deserves a little time just to savor it and swirl it around. I don't really want to move on too quickly. I think everybody should just take a moment to slurp a bit more, and if necessary, have a mouthful of food.
Right, Andrew Dixon, I've tried to mute you, but I can't. You've got some special secret sauce that's allowed you to unmute yourself, and I can't put your glasses on. There we go. There's always a naughty one, isn't there? Just breaking the rules.
So, Federica, we were sort of, whilst we sort of sit and glow in the 14.5% 5-year-old Barolo, tell us a bit about your family. How long have you been in the region, and how many generations are you making wine in the area?
It's a long time ago. All my family work with me in my cellar, and there were before the grandparents of my grandparents. So always we live in that house in Dogliani, and always we made wine. But before 30 years ago, it was like a farm. So we have also cow and not only wine. And then more or less 30 years ago, my father decided that a lot of things together is not possible to make. So we decided only to make wine. In that year, our cellar grow a lot. Before we have our vineyard only in Dogliani, so we produce Dolcetto and Langhe Barbera. And then we rent also some place in Monforte, in Perno, where we make the Barolo, and also some place near Monforte where we make the Barbera d'Alba. So in this moment we make 12 different wine.
I know, because I mean, your how many hectares of vineyard do you possess?
Now we have more or less 20.
So 20 hectares, but you're making 12 different wines.
Yes,
that's a very wide spread of different things. Why do you make so many different wines, or why not? Would you not like to produce more Barolo or more Barbera?
But we started to make the Barolo because the Barolo is the king of the wine. So we started to make the Barolo. Now is 20 years ago. We start to make Pinot Nero because was my father like a lot of Pinot Nero, so we start to make Pinot Nero, and all the people really like Pinot Nero. So now we make more the Pinot Nero. So
can I interrupt you there? When you because of this very strange this very strange year, where normally when we find a new wine that we like with the Real Wine Company, we select it, and then we would go and visit you, and we would go and see and meet you and your family. But of course, we haven't been allowed to do that this year because after we selected the wine, we've not had the opportunity to travel. But it was I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there. What was the Barolo was the wine that I was looking for. Mm-hmm. And then I tasted your Dolcetto, which I liked, and your Barbera, which I liked. And then I didn't taste some of the other wines, but when you sent the delivery, which only arrived last week after all this time, you sent some extra bottles of samples, and one of which was the Pinot Nero, the Pinot Noir. And I tasted it thinking, well, I'll taste it but I don't expect to have a good Pinot Noir from this area. And it was absolutely delicious. It was 15% alcohol. It was rich. It was deep. It was almost like a Central Otago Pinot Noir from the South Island of New Zealand. It was something completely unexpected for me. So how do you such a rich Pinot Noir, which we don't have, by the way. Next shipment, we're putting some on the order.
But the history of the Pinot Noir, Pinot Nero is funny because it was a joke for my father. So was not for sale, Pinot Nero. In the 96 was the first year that we produce the Pinot Nero. And then the 97 was the perfect year for Pinot Nero. So we start to sell is crazy, but all our Pinot Nero, all of them, for the some here, we sell all in USA, in Oregon. That they are the most producer of Pinot Noir, but they buy all our Pinot Noir. Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, yes, that's because the Oregon state of Oregon is a big Pinot Noir producer, isn't it?
And in our area, we were the first to make Pinot Noir.
Are there other people?
Anybody produced Pinot Nero in the 97 in our region.
Okay. Well, I think it. Well, again, sorry, I can't even. I can only share my memory of it because we had the whole bottle. Really enjoyed it, and I will definitely be putting. If you don't sell it all to the United States, we'll have a small amount on our next order if that's okay. If you have some to spare.
Don't worry. Now I don't have more this importer in USA because it's definitively closed. So you can buy Pinot Noir if you want next time.
The other thing I wanted to mention, if anybody in the room likes reading detective stories and police detective stories, there's an author, British author called Michael Dibdin, who writes. And there's an Italian detective called Aurelio Zen, and one of his stories takes place in Piemonte, where he's investigating the death of a Barolo producer, Barolo and Truffle producer. And if you like reading detective stories and you want to get a bit of truffles and wine, go and buy. It's called what's it called? It's called A Long Finish by Michael Dibdin. It's a great book. And then you can you drink a bottle of Barolo and read the book. That's just as a pure aside, nothing to do with wine really, but it's a good story to read. There you go.
And thankfully, nothing to do with corks. You'll all be pleased to hear.
Yeah, well, yes, we can always do with corks. Anyway.
No, look, we always bring it round to the Real Wine Company holidays and the Real Wine Company tours. But I did mention at the start, Mark, when you were having some technical difficulties, that I have had the pleasure of visiting the Barolo region, and it genuinely is like no other place on the planet. The hills are there. I'm going to say there were five ridges,
yeah.
3, 5, 4.
Yeah, I don't know. You need to ask Federica. How many hills are there?
Federica, describe the hills and describe the villages in Barolo.
Sorry, it's very difficult for me. You wanted to explain the village of Barolo?
Yeah, and how many ridges? There are 3 ridges, and then villages on the ridges.
You can see, Mark, I have a photo. Because I can't in my website where you can see all these hills.
It is a beautifully undulating part of the world. It's actually it's a bit like the vineyards in Slovenia, up and down, but it's very different. It's a bit more rugged than that. And the vineyards, of course, Barolo and Barbaresco and all the wines being actually well renowned in the world. There's vineyards everywhere, and the Moscato as well, and the Verma. So it's beautiful. It's up and down. It's an interesting topography, and it's covered in vines. And actually, I just wondered. We were trying to wonder whether there is agritourism. Are there places? Are there vineyards to stay or farms to stay if we wanted to come and do some tourism in your area?
Sorry, you speak with me, Mark?
Yeah. I'm just about Federica. Are there lots of places to do tourism in your area? Can we, if we wanted to come on holiday and take wine, eat truffles and drink Moscato?
But we have normally, of course, not last year, a lot of tourists from all the world. The typical tour that people can make is Barolo, Barbaresco, Serralunga, Dogliani, and there are a lot of places where you can stay to sleep and where you can eat. But there is also a part of our area that is not in the Barolo area. So it's from Dogliani to the hill, where you make the nus, that so you the nocciole.
Nocciole.
L'area dove si fanno alta langa.
Is that so? The nocciole is the nuts.
Nell'area dove si fanno le nocciole.
So the area where they're making the hazelnuts.
Yeah. That is not a Barolo area, and you can stay to sleep, and you can eat very, very well, and is very cheap. Is cheaper than the Barolo area, and is very beautiful area for visit as well.
But very close to come and visit you and
yeah, Dogliani is in the center. Dogliani is 15 kilometers from Barolo, and 15 kilometers from, for example, Murazzano. That is a typical town where they make also cheese, typical from here. And for example, Murazzano is a very nice town, very small, very nice to visit. And you can find a place where sleep and where eat very, very good and cheaper than the area of Barolo. Because now
I would recommend, well, like everywhere, there's so many places to go and visit and travel to and eat and drink and meet nice people. It'd be fantastic. So we will do it. I've been seeing some questions there, Rachel, about sort of grape varieties. Oh, you just muted yourself, Rachel.
I guess confirming that Barolo is only like produced in Barolo. It's like Champagne. You might have different grape varieties growing in Tuscany and other regions, but Barolo is from Barolo. It's a DOP.
So Barolo and Barbaresco, the king and queen of grape varieties, that's a regional name given by the town where they come from, and they are made 100% from the Nebbiolo grape. So the Nebbiolo is the grape. And it's the, I think I'm right in saying that Nebbiolo may be grown anywhere else outside of the region, but it won't be in an official DOC, which it used to be called DOP anymore. So Barolo is regional, Barbaresco is regional, but when we have a Dolcetto delle Langhe, Dolcetto is the grape, but it comes from the Langhe region. When you have a Dogliani, which Federica mentioned earlier, that's a region, that's the town, which is made 100% from the Dolcetto. So it's confusing because Dogliani, which is 100% Dolcetto, doesn't say Dolcetto on the label, whereas Dolcetto delle Langhe does. And so therefore you wouldn't find Nebbiolo or Dolcetto or Barbera in Tuscany because they have their Sangiovese and their own autochthonous, my new favorite word, grapes.
I mean, if anyone doesn't feel completely overwhelmed by that amount of grape and terroir information like I do.
You can never have too much terroir or cork information, in my opinion.
Can I tell a little bit?
Yes,
sorry.
Yes.
Only for explain you, the area of where you can produce Barolo is an area where there are 11 towns, okay? Yeah. Outside these 11 towns, you can plant Nebbiolo, but you can produce Langhe Nebbiolo or Nebbiolo d'Alba, but not Barolo. For example, our cellar is in Dogliani. Dogliani is not in the town of Barolo. It's for this reason that we have the vineyard in Monforte d'Alba, that is a town of Barolo, And we have also a small cellar for vinification and aging, because the Barolo you had to plant in this 11 town, but they must be also the vinification and the aging also inside this 11 town.
Yeah. I've got to say that when I was doing my wine exams, again back in the early 80s, you had to do a lot of geography. You had to learn the names of towns and things, and you had to be able to identify places on a map. And Italy has got the biggest number, the longest list of different DOPs, or Appellation Contrôlées, as they say in French, different names of wines. It just goes on and on and on and on and on, and it's very difficult to get a grip on it all. But basically, if you know the name of the grape variety, Nebbiolo, then you can have as Federica said, you can have a Nebbiolo delle Langhe. And so it's made from the same grape, but it's not from one of the villages that is allowed to be called Barolo or Barbaresco. So it's the same grape variety, in the same way that, for example, Merlot is a grape variety, but not all Merlot can be called Bordeaux because it's not in the right region. So it's one of those things.
And then another question: how does the cold weather impact the grapes, and are some grape varieties more affected?
Yeah, that's a question for Federica. We saw the picture of the snow on the vineyards. Is snow and frost a problem for you, or?
But you, this night, you make you give a lot of difficult questions.
Yeah.
It's a very demanding audience.
No, for us, is typical weather that in winter snow a lot and must snow, because the snow when go down, the water go inside the flower, so the plant can have water for all the summer. Also, if there is a very hot summer, the grape go really down and can find water.
The vine is one of those plants that it will grow where nothing else will grow, because the roots will go down tens of meters to find water, and that's why it's grown in lots of areas where nothing else will grow, which is very fortunate for we wine lovers.
Yes, and sorry, and only for the Barolo is very important. That is the last grapes that we take off during the harvest, because must be start a little bit cold temperature. So we take off when there is the first
frost.
Nebbia.
Fog. The nebbia is the fog.
Fog.
Okay, that's quite late in the. That's quite late then. It's quite late in the picking after the Nebbiolo is the last grape you pick, isn't it?
Yes.
Tell me, Federica. What I always want to know.
Sorry, one moment, Walter.
We're going to ask Federica what her favorite three wines are.
Sorry, but I have a phone and.
You got a phone. You've got children. We've got a dog. It's terrible. These people.
Okay,
Mark's got an echo.
Sorry, with two child is not easy, but tonight are very quiet.
They've been very well behaved.
It's not normal.
They've been very good.
I'm lucky tonight.
We always used to do that with our children. 2 glasses of Barolo before bedtime. They quieten them down very nice.
Yes.
So, what are your three favorite wines, Federica?
My 3 favorite wine. For me, for my wine, I speak about my wine. Then, if you want, I told also white wine.
Every wine. Every wine.
For not only for my wine.
The whole world.
Okay.
Your top 3.
Including your wine.
Okay. Pinot Nero.
Okay.
All the Pinot Nero.
You like Pinot, so Pinot Noir. Okay,
yes,
so
Pinot Noir.
That's your favorite grape, right?
Second wine is Etna Bianco.
Etna?
Yeah.
Etna Bianco. White wine from Sicily.
White Etna. White
wine from the Mount Etna in Sicily.
Yes.
Sicilian white.
Yes, and the third one, I think all the spumanti very good. So my Alta Langa and the champagne.
Okay.
Yeah, sparkling wines.
Yeah.
Yeah, how interesting. How interesting. So Barolo is not your favorite, but you like a Pinot Noir.
Normally, I don't drink a lot of Barolo. I like the Barolo, but if I go, for example, take dinner outside, I prefer drink Pinot Nero, but because I try to taste all the wine also from other region.
Yeah, of course. Quite
Yeah.
right.
I also just think that's the sign of a really good winemaker. Is someone that drinks loads of other people's wines, appreciates other regions, like, you know, drinks everything. I think so many times we get, actually, you know what, everyone has had quite like, you know, varied favorites actually. But I find it really humbling when I hear these brilliant winemakers talk about their favorites. I think it's a really good idea, Mark. I'm also intrigued as to the Etna Bianco.
Yeah.
So the Sicilian, presumably, Mark, their volcanic like soil that they're being grown in, if they're Sicilian. And
well, I tell you what, because it's erupting at the moment, isn't it? I don't know how far the vineyards are. I've never actually, we've been there, but I've never been there professionally. We've been round Etna and driven around it, but not actually been there to taste anybody's winery. So maybe that's a good one. We do have a permanent will to go back to Sicily, because there are some absolutely fantastic wines in Sicily. So next time we'll make a point, and maybe Federica, if you like white wines from Etna, you might know a producer or two, and you can recommend a visit. So that would be excellent.
I never been to visit the producer in Sicily, but I know some very good Etna Bianco.
Very good.
there we go, guys. What you were asking for is, you know, where's the next real wine company holiday? Well, I can confirm that the Barolo region is beautiful. It's a very good spot to visit. You can fly into Turin, you could fly into Milan, you could even fly into somewhere like Nice and drive through across the border. It's beautiful. But we've also had teed up perfectly a holiday to Sicily to go and, you know, try some new wines. So yeah, also in Etna, so very excited.
Well, I tell you what, if there are any questions for Federica, we'll let her go, but we maybe unmute everybody and raise a glass to thank Federica for joining us and for keeping her children in such good control during the tasting.
Well, we've both got empty glasses.
So Federica.
Thank you.
Oh, grazie.
I've got empty glasses.
Thank you, Federica.
Thank you.
Grazie.
Thank you, and I hope see you in Italy.
Where's Mark?
Yes, we hope so.
I hope to see you in Italy. We can't wait.
Italy, here we go.
A lot of talking.
Well, if anybody wants to hang on, I'm going to. Well, we're going to have a little glass of red wine with the pizza. Stay on if you want, or go and have your beef in Barolo or your pizza, whichever. So thank you, Federica. Federica, you're having a cal. What did you say you were eating tonight? A bagno caldo? No, bagno caldo means a hot bath. That's something else. Che cosa hai detto che mangi stasera?
I eat before. I eat before.
Okay.
I eat meat bollito. That is a typical plate from our area. Is meat, and then a cake because
I'm okay just now.
Okay. So bollita. That was what I was thinking of. Yeah, bollita.
Close enough.
Bollita is a stew. It's a stew.
and today is Father's Day, so auguri a tutti papà.
Ah, yes. Auguri a tutti papà. Congratulations to all fathers. Father's Day. Okay.
We have a son somewhere.
Montebene.
Collection.
Yes, I didn't get a card.
Federica, not he was drinking beer earlier, Mark, your son.
Hey?
Where is he?
Yeah, he's in
Beer.
My son?
Yeah, we've got our son here somewhere. As well.
Yeah, one is here.
He might have gone now.
Oh, look at that.
And the other, wait, I'll show also the other. Walter, portami a Medeo. One moment,
Yeah.
You want to see the whole family?
All the family.
Yeah. Very good. Hello.
That's
Hi,
very
ciao,
cute.
ciao.
Hello.
Auguri, Papa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Grazie mille.
Hey.
Grazie mille.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao, grazie mille.
Grazie.
Oh,
Very nice.
that's so sweet.
Right.
Who we got left?
Pizza time.
We've got loads left. Look at that. Isn't that fantastic? Hello, everybody.
So now I've got.
Oh, they're all muted. We need hands up if you've got any questions.
Let me.
I've got the whole screen. Where's Richard, our son? Is he gone?
I don't know, but so the question is.
Is he coming to sit in your knee?
So we are. Hands up! How many people?
If we couldn't go with you, we should let them see us.
Beef in Barolo tonight. We made it, but we got it tomorrow. So we'll just have that tomorrow.
I don't think everyone's muted.
That's fair.
They've saved it tomorrow, but I'm very worried because my beef has been marinating for about 36 hours now.
Oh, that'll be lovely.
Yeah, I don't think you can marinate your beef too long, quite frankly.
That'll just fall apart when it's
Well, that's good.
delicious.
Right.
Peter's relieved.
Yeah, no, so we're going to have some. We did one pizza because we needed something. So the wine needs food to taste with it. These wines, they're very, very different. And they're very lovely in a different way. So we're going to now then cook some pizza
We are indeed.
and have those and finish off the bottles. And then tomorrow we're going to have the beef in Barolo came out of the freezer.
Which we made probably a month ago. I had in the freezer because we put it on Mark and Rita at home.
Yeah, on the YouTube channel.
So it's on the YouTube channel. So that's we felt we couldn't eat it tonight because we're doing this. We then end up not having any time to eat.
So
but it's lovely to see everybody eating tonight.
It is great. So please do send us some pictures so we can share the pictures of pizzas or.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, lighting's very nice.
So no questions.
No, okay.
Everybody's just happy.
Okay, excellent, good. So we'll go and make a pizza then.
Enjoy your
See you
pizza.
guys next week.
Thank
you.
So next week we've got
Jeff Carroll.
Jeff Carroll.
Bye.
Not Jeff, but Jeff Carroll. Ryan.
Jeff Cameron.
Bye, both.
Bye.
Love everyone.
Thanks, Rachel. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. I think she's gone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Bye.